Welcome back to the Foxfied Amplified Table with Kim Passoth here on a story that you've been covering and that is getting a lot of attention really around the country because this is something that's happening in a lot of different places. AI data centers, and to get the chat GPT or the AI that you use on your phone or your computer takes a lot of data and a lot of electricity to get that done. So they're building these data centers everywhere. Arizona's got a lot of them, and now they're trying to build them out here in Boulder City area.
Yeah, even to stream, videos or whatnot on your phone, these data centers are necessary. So the proposal is now to build one. It's called Town Site 2. It would be by the Town Site 1 solar project, which is out in Boulder City. When you drive on the I-11, you can see that just south of the freeway. It's a huge solar development. So they want to put the data center out there. So that has definitely drawn a lot of concern from the citizens of Boulder City. We met with dozens of homeowners who have come forward and expressed their concerns. Some of the big concerns that they expressed is how will their electricity bills be impacted. Yesterday we spoke with the developer, and the developer said that they will not be using the city's power grid, that they'll have their own source, that they'll acquire it from independent sources. It won't be from the city of Boulder City. So they said that the residents' power bills should not be impacted in that regard. But one of the things that the residents concerned is that these data centers generate a lot of heat. And, we're one of the fastest warming regions in the country already. So they're concerned, even though this data center would be over 2 miles away from the nearest home, that if it heats up that area, is it going to spread to their homes? They're going to have to make their electricity during the summer, their air conditioning, they're going to have to pump that up. That would increase their bills. So that's one of their concerns. So it's whether or not they can mitigate that.
They're not looking at it as like, oh, this is an eyesore, because if you know where the town site solar is, it's right there. It's off the freeway. There's really nothing around it. We did have that fire there, I think, back in September.
Right.
It's the last time it really made news. I wonder if maybe they'll get some of the power from that. Who knows? But they're going to put it next to that. So it's not that. But we were talking when this story was airing that in Arizona, there's been some concerns about some of these being built next to home communities, way closer than it is here. I've seen them out where my folks lived in Buckeye, Arizona. They're building these data centers, but there's homes all around them. And the people were complaining that, we have this heat island effect already, as you sort of mentioned, being in an urban area, and the heat going up and the temperatures rising. And then in their homes, they did some studies from Arizona State that showed that their temperatures were up by like a degree or two.
Wow.
Just in those areas. And so that's what people are really worried about. I know the gentleman you had in your story last night was worried about that, but also just the environmental impact.
Yeah.
These places use water to cool things, and they did say they wouldn't use city water, but
So the only plans the developers said that they would have for city water would be their wastewater, and that would be used for dust mitigation during construction. So basically, any construction project in Las Vegas, you're going to get a lot of dust. So they've got to have some way of keeping that dust down, and that's usually with water trucks. And they said that they would use the city's wastewater to do that, but it would only be for construction. Past that, the only potable water that they would use would be in their bathrooms and their kitchen. But you mentioned environmental concerns, and that's another big one for the residents out there. Even though that is open desert, there are wetlands out in that area. There's desert tortoises, things that are protected. So that is also a big concern. Now, the developer said that they would build desert tortoise friendly fencing so they could go in and out. They would relocate them if they came onto their property. So they said that they're very environmentally friendly, that they have that in mind. But still, residents have their concerns. One resident that we spoke to, he was like, I really want an independent study. I want somebody to come in that doesn't have an affiliation with a Town Site Solar 2, isn't a resident, somebody independent like UNLV to come in and do a study and tell us what this impact would really be for our community.
And I know that it was interesting because they were talking, the developers are out there, they're trying to kind of quell the fears of people like, hey, we're going to do this responsibly.
Right.
Understandably, people that live there, they don't believe it. A lot of people have been bought and sold things that never happen the way they're supposed to. But it was interesting to hear that they agree to put the property back to like the way it was, but that's like 90 years from now. If that were the case, if it's not used anymore or something like that.
Yeah, which is really interesting because it would be a 90-year lease. But they did say they would restore the area to what it was before it was developed. But again, a 90-year lease, none of us will be around to see that.
No, nobody will be around to see that. It'd be interesting to see. I mean, that was, I guess, if it's not used, and who knows what the future of technology is.
What I thought was really interesting, and one thing that they said would be an economic boon for the city, is that they have to replace all of the equipment in the data center every 3 years. So the economic impact to begin with, they said would in Boulder City already has a financial gap, so they're trying to figure out what can we do to close that? And these AI data centers would be one way. There's actually multiple AI data centers proposed, and the other one, the idea of it at least, is going to be on the ballot in November. This town site solar 2, that wouldn't be impacted by that. But data centers, this isn't a one-off.
Yeah.
This is a lot of communities throughout Nevada. We know Reno's had them come, and that's impacted the community up there. But the question is, moving forward, are our communities going to be receptive to these AI data centers?
Yeah, well, I mean, and I guess I'd ask the personal question:
Yeah.
how often do you use it?
Right.
AI,
Right.
or just as you mentioned, it's really a lot of it's just data centers, the cloud, things like that, where stuff is stored.
And
The
that's what the
digital
developers
world.
said. Everybody uses it, and it's going to be something that's going to be needed in a financial, $2.5 million for the city first year, 1.5 million in the years following
Is that
that.
just in tax revenue, or
That would be,
just
yeah,
revenue
revenue
going to
to
the
the
city?
city directly. We're not talking about economic impact. I mean, you have about up to 40 workers that would be full-time, $100,000
Okay.
plus salary. They would probably live in Boulder City. You've got people that would come visit, stay in their hotels. Obviously, that's a bed and breakfast community, so they've got a lot of that out there. So there would be a big financial impact, but still, people say this is our small town and we want it to stay a small town. So, technology versus what the town feel is, it's kind of in conflict.
Yeah, the first story we did was, here's what people are proposing, here's the controversy. Then they actually had a public meeting, and that's what we were last at,
Right.
was the public meeting, which we heard from all these people. What's the next step here?
There's supposed to be a protest, I believe it's April 15th, before the Planning Commission meeting. The organizers tell me that that's going to be going all day from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. They definitely want to make their voices heard. The Planning Commission would be the group from Boulder City that would be able to move it on to the next step. So they could move it on to the next step at that commission meeting. But from what I'm told, the opposition is going to be there all day opposing it. So, but again, there's two sides to this. There's the economics, and the developers saying that this is going to be a good project for the city, and then you've got some of the residents that are pushing back. So, both two sides to the story.
All right, we'll continue to cover it and see what happens next there, because what happens in that community will probably be a litmus test for what happens in other places, because as you
Absolutely.
mentioned, they do want to build these all over the place. You can find our previous coverage on Fox 5 Vegas Plus here on the app, our fox5vegas.com website, and we'll see you here on Amplified next time.